One. Hey, everybody, welcome back. I'm Emily Moyer, and this is Strange Mosaic, and we have a fabulous guest today. But before we get to that, I just want to make a quick announcement. We're recording this on Thursday, November 11th. The show will go out Friday, November 12th, early in the day. And if you get this before then, there will be a live stream on Locals at 7 p.m. Eastern. It'll be a Q&A, and you can even ask me some questions about whatever happens in this show, which I don't know what that exactly will be yet, so we'll find out. So I just wanted to let people know about that. It's over on Locals, emilymoyer.locals.com. And now on with the show. All right, first she brought us all the information we needed to know about 5G, HARP, chemtrails, the space fence, full spectrum dominance of planet Earth, and now she's back to tell us about how all of that connects to synthetic biology and what we are experiencing right now. Elana Freeland, I would say welcome back, but I think this is the first time you're with me since I'm not on Off Planet Radio anymore, just on my own. So welcome to Strange Mosaic. It's wonderful to have you, and I can't believe it's been 2.5 years.
I know, it's amazing, Emily. Yeah, I'm grateful to come on and talk about the book that took 2.5 years to write, because so much has broken as story. I mean, you know, many people have felt this, that every day they get up, there's going to be some new thing that isn't necessarily pleasant, but is informative. And so I've been keeping up on it myself ever since I saw the first scene of Wuhan 2 years ago. I knew exactly what had happened there. I mean, pretty much. I knew it was a 5G event, and I then was already involved in writing this book. I mean, to go back to the people who don't know, my first book in geoengineering was back in 2014, and that was chemtrails, HARP, and the full spectrum dominance of planet Earth. And that, because of the studies I did there and what revealed itself to me, that led to the second book, which was Under an Ionized Sky, From Chemtrails to Space Fence Lockdown. And that one was published in 2018. Both of those books were published by Feral House. They did a great job. Adam Parfrey was alive then for both of them. And then he passed. Since then, I have gone on my own too, Emily. I am publishing this third book, third and final. I want witnesses to this. This is my last book on geoengineering, because
you say that every time.
No, I haven't. No, I haven't. Because this one goes about as far as I can possibly take it. I might be able to write a few essays and a few thises and that's on various aspects that I'm fascinated by, like plasma. I'm very fascinated by plasma. But as far as an entire statement on what's going on in the atmosphere and what's going on now in our bodies due to the nanotechnology that the aerosols have delivered and we have breathed in and eaten and drunk and are now being so-called vaccinated with. So that this book is called Geoengineered Transhumanism: How the Environment Has Been Weaponized by Chemicals, Electromagnetism, and Nanotechnology for Synthetic Biology. Long title, longer book, 690 pages, Emily.
Wow.
And 60 illustrations. In this book, I cover just about everything you need to be aware of to understand how epigenetically the environment has been prepared for a transformation in the human being to what we are now calling transhumanist. We can also call it a hybrid. We can call it a cyborg. There are many names we can have, but the masters of the universe who think they run us and have virtually run people for centuries, they want a different species of human being. And that's what is going on now, is a final move is being made to implement the transhuman agenda. And that implementation is happening through these inoculations. So that's the key. Let me say a couple of phrases that I think are super important. First of all, of course, my favorite, dual use technology. That's a military term, and it means that that technology can be used for military uses, which would be warfare or whatever, targeting, whatever it is, and for civilian use. That would be the communications, the comforts, the conveniences, the entertainment, etc. In other words, just about every technology we have, because of how the environment has been epigenetically set up, can be used for warfare against the citizenry. So that's definitely important. The next thing I'd like to say that I really love and that I tried to write the book constantly aware of is the phrase that's attributed to Einstein, but really it was not Einstein who said it. I don't know who said it, but it was very wise. And it starts out, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking that produced them. And that is what I attempt to follow as my mantra through a very technical book, but a technical book written by a layperson. I don't have a PhD in physics or biology, for the population to read. And that's people who also normally don't have a PhD. So that's what I've attempted to do. Now it gets complex, and I have a ton of footnotes as usual, but those footnotes are primarily for people who want to take it a little further, or for people who think, oh, I can't believe this, what she just said. And they can go off and see where I got it and pursue it from there. So it's a handbook, it's a manual to make your way through this technocrat era. And that goes all the way from part one, in which I do the geoengineering coverage that I normally do in each subsequent book that is up to date. And that part is where I look at the fact that there have been 3 major delivery systems for the technology that is now inside of us and is now being primed by the technology being inoculated into people. At the same time, though, lest the people who are choosing not to be vaccinated, like myself, it is being added to the mix of whatever is coming down on us from aerosols. And it's also probably in the mix of the genetically modified foods that are being produced in all of the subsidized and overtaken farmland. So the 3 systems are the aerosols from the jets, drones, and rockets. The second system is genetically modified foods. And the third is vaccinations. So we know all these. We've had the most recent one, I would say, would be the aerosols. And we've had those for at least 20, 25 years now in the program that I expose, starting with Project Cloverleaf and going on into the secret space program that Catherine Austin Fitts is continuously reminding people of, as to where, for example, the budgetary lapse of $21 trillion probably went, as all of this is national security. How you can write a book like this about the 3 delivery systems when you're dealing with a national security technology, yeah, it's a bit challenging, because first of all, you have to understand how to read disinformation. You have to know who the sources are, who's bankrolling them, like the New York Times, Washington Post, the normal corporate entities. And then you have to be able to read between the lines. And then you have to be able to read papers and patents and understand what their status is now. Have they Was it just a paper of a few guys and it hasn't been brought online? Or is it still a patent in the patent office awaiting authorization, et cetera? Now, you can figure all that out, I tell you, if you're willing to do the hours of work. So those three main delivery systems is what I concentrate on throughout the book. And then I cover some other things you need to know about radiation. It's not what it seems, and the so-called leaks may actually be very purposeful to see how it affects human evolution and the evolution of life, and something new, which they are constantly talking about, which is inorganic life. And inorganic life is definitely the realm of synthetic biology. So then I also cover magnetism, because everybody's also looking at the magnetism being used in these inoculations right now, and what magnetism really is, and what it has to do with electromagnetic fields, and what it has to do with weaponizing those, and et cetera. So there are several chapters, 7 to be exact, in the first section. Then I move on to the second section, which I think is very important, is to really look at the smart city and what they have planned for the smart city. It's by being smart, you understand that what that means. That means that it's weaponized and it can go dual use. So the smart city is armed to the teeth regarding control over human beings, families, all of the above, or corporations, natural life in the city, the atmosphere over the city, all of it. And included there are some pretty radical things I have to say about the techno hospital, the smart hospital. And certainly the smart hospital is playing a very large role in the deaths and complications going on in those who have been vaccinated, so-called. That the smart hospital is a very dangerous place to go now. So I then, of course, later in the book, get deeply into my best advice to people as to returning to their ability to take care of themselves, their own health, to understand what the immune system is, how they can support it, and to not fall prey to what can happen, not will happen necessarily, but can happen in the smart hospitals, which are, of course, all 5G and 6G. And even if they're still like a rural hospital is 4G plus. 4G plus is just as good as saying 5G. They have the same phased array antenna system in them. They can all be steered, they can be beamed. They can therefore target different people and situations. So let's not be under an illusion if it's 4G plus. So then the third section is where I go deep into the genetics and what synthetic biology is up to with genetics, and also the what we are undergoing as a culture, as a world culture now, a total assault on the human genome going on right now. So then my final chapter in the book is called Remaining Human. And I've already been asked by several people to write a book about how to remain human. I think that's a great idea. I think a lot of people are doing that in their varying perspectives. But for me, I don't know enough yet to really write a thorough, comprehensive book on that advice. So I'm all ears, I'm all eyes, I'm paying attention. I have, my files are still happening. This ain't over and I ain't done. And as I always say, the fat lady hasn't sung yet. This has not been resolved yet. We are still all over this Sherlock Holmes style, as many people are. So that's the book. And I'm very pleased that a lot of people have been waiting for months for it. I apologize. I had to really listen to a lot of news reports and have some thinking and read a couple more books and, you know, that sort of thing in order to have my final day in court in the book. Now, I know a lot of people will be overwhelmed by the size of the book. It's, oh my God, you know, I've already had one lovely man in Peru who, I don't know how, maybe he read the ebook, but he's already read it. And he had nothing but great glowing praise, which was very kind of him. So I know you can do it. If you don't want to read the whole thing or you can't read the whole thing, use it as a handbook. Look something up. I was talking to someone today who's writing something on 5G. So she just looked up what I had to say about 5G and to get some ideas. So yeah, use it that way. Not quite as an I Ching book as we used to use it in the 60s, but maybe that would work too. I don't know. But form reading groups if you have enough people around you. Get together, 5, 6 people, and everybody read chapter so-and-so for the next meeting. And then you all read aloud together for a second time around together. And then you discuss it as you go. And if you only get through 3 pages in an hour and a half, that's an hour and a half well spent, because there's a lot to think about in the book. So yeah, I'm so happy, Emily. I've been able to now turn to a few more minor projects that I had tabled so that I could come forth with this. So when you're ready, we can talk about some of the most important things in the book that I think I really care a lot about people knowing about. Last night I was on Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis up here in the Pacific Northwest, talking about the 8th sphere and what it has to do with Facebook's recent movement toward the metaverse. And is it the same as Rudolf Steiner's 8th sphere? And yes, it is. It's very much the same thing. And what's going on there? Because looking at the nanotechnology that I talk about in the book ad nauseum. I mean, I endlessly talk about nanotechnology in the book, because without that nanotechnology, they could not be doing what they're doing now. This is the linchpin for all the technologies they have prepped through their epigenetic assault on our environment outside of our bodies and inside of our bodies. So, so yeah, there are things that we can put forth for people to understand are really crucial to understand are active in us, because this is the era of invisible technologies. And you're going to have to take my word for it that they exist, such as electricity. I mean, you know, we still don't quite understand how electricity works, but we've been living with it now for what, 2 centuries. It has repercussions. Now we have electromagnetic waves moving through our bodies all the time, because we have particulate matter in our atmosphere. It's all ionized, it's all popping with electricity as these wireless operations, military and civilian, are going every which way. And then we have this brand new one, which was discovered in basically the 70s, but came out pretty much gung-ho in the 90s, very quietly, is the nanotechnology. And now we need to concentrate on that as well.
All right, that was quite an introduction. I have a series of notes here already for things that I kind of wanted to ask you. Kind of broke it up nicely into the different segments of the book. And I'm just going to ask you a few questions about each of those, and then we can move on to you telling us about the parts that you wanted to tell us about that you feel the strongest about and the most important. So first of all, that's a huge book. I knew it was coming out. I wasn't aware that it had already come out. So I'm looking forward to reading it. And what you said about, like, even if it takes you 3 hours to read a page and a half, that's my problem now. I used to be a really fast reader. Like, I read Atlas Shrugged in like less than a week, like 5 days. It's, you know, it was my favorite book when I was younger. But what's happened now is, like, my brain is so active, and everything I read, anytime I read anything meaningful, it generates like an entire array of thoughts and ideas and things that it connects to. And if I move on too quickly in the book, I don't explore them. So like literally, like if I feel a book is meaningful, I will read a page or two of it a day and let my mind do the whole exercise around all of those ideas. We read in the morning and we talk about stuff. And sometimes it's like literally a page a day, right? But there might be a 2-hour conversation about the one page and 3 shows generated from it, right?
Exactly. That's the way to do it, Emily.
Yeah. So, okay. So here's my question. So on the first section where you were kind of going over just the geoengineering aspect and things like that, and you kind of connected it also to some stuff with vaccinations. So one of the things that I've noticed, and I'm going to speak just for here in Austin because I've been here the last 6 months. So that there seems to be a lot less geoengineering than there used to be. There will occasionally we'll have like a weekend or a series of a few days in a row where it's like really heavy, but we will have sometimes what seems like months without any visible geoengineering. That doesn't mean that there isn't anything we can't see. But what I have noticed is the geoengineering seems to have been replaced by these perfect little puffy clouds that look so much like the ones we used to see when I was little, but they just feel like they're from Super Mario Brothers or a Bob Ross painting, or they're flat bottomed. All of them are flat bottomed, like not just like 1 or 2, but all of them. That is like, did somebody, is it like, you know, like what is going on here, right? Like, and I think of Sean Gautreau's work, and I think of the fact that like, our atmosphere is very likely a video game screen, and this is like Pixar doing their thing or whatever, right? And so is this something you've been noticing or hearing from other people as well, that there doesn't seem to be the classic lines in the sky, or even so much of the, like, I still see some of the sort of shape-shifting cloud craft covering things Sean used to talk about, but a lot more of these like cartoon clouds.
Oh, that's a good term, cartoon clouds. Okay, so 2 things come to mind. The first is if you don't have, when you have a so-called clear day without any chemical trails like the ones we're accustomed to seeing, the long trails that dissipate into a cirrus cloud cover. If you don't have that and you think you're having a clear day, really look at the quality of the blue of your sky, because I don't think you're having a clear day. You're not having a really blue sky anymore. There's too much particulate matter in the atmosphere now. And it's pumped in every day. For those who think that they could go a day without breathing in nanobots and nanoparticles, you're under an illusion, because you're breathing in masses, I'd say trillions and trillions of nanoparticles that may be nanosensors, and now join the rest of the nanosensors in your body and brain, and start relaying through micro computers to computer central regarding your biometrics, or what the conversation around you is saying, or what you're feeling, what your behavior is at night. There is no privacy anymore, because we have too many sensors, and they're coming in from the sky. They're not just kind of hovering around us. They're being delivered constantly from the stratosphere. So that's one thing. There's a patent you can read, and I've put it up in places where you see that they don't need the trails anymore. They can do it through light and sound. They don't need the chemical trails anymore. But this is all part of moving molecular biology or molecular chemistry to the data pumping.
Which patent is this? Do you know? So there's a patent where I can read. What you're saying makes perfect sense to me, because I have experienced things like that, where like there's a light and a sound, and I suddenly see things starting to change and take shape in a place that you'd think was a natural environment. Where is this patent?
Well, the patent I was referring to is the one. It's just a short. It's actually got a short video clip with it too, which is about the fact that the trails, that they can make the trails invisible. It says the word invisible in the title.
Trails, okay.
As far as the sound and light, the opto and sono types of equipment now, that is part of the digital change in biology, chemistry, all the old sciences that we have thought have to do with organic life. But regarding your Mario sculpted clouds, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And the fact that they have a bottom to them indicates that they are being probably being made on a laptop. And the way it would happen would be they've got the chemicals, and they've got the electromagnetics ready, and they have the nanoparticulate matter in the air. And just as they do the weather, just as they can whip up a storm out of nothing, just as they can turn the jet stream into and make it elbow, this all is done through computers, through maybe not a laptop, but certainly computers. And it all has to do with digital formatting, not molecular. Except that for the molecular, just to be clear, I'm not pulling it out of the air, so to speak, that it is a frequency, a very specific frequency that can be pulsed.
Yeah.
And then you can produce cloud forms. You can produce, I call it plasma sculpting, because plasma is the fourth state of matter, is what we're told, though I think that is not true. I think it's actually the first state of matter after an electromagnetic event in the universe. But plasma is very much being studied. Plasma life forms, in other words, inorganic life forms that there are patents for now, and then in space as well, up above us, and even in the stratosphere and above. I mean, they're experimenting with, gee, what happens up here if we bring this particular biological event up here, like conception or something? What does the fact that it's in space do to the process that has been earthbound for so long? That, all of those things. Very exciting time for scientists. It's just that who's paying for all this, not just in money, but in their health, is us, because the nanoparticles, there are nanoparticles that are natural, and in space we have dusty plasma, for example. It's just part of space. But once those are taken up and retro-engineered or whatever, or just biotechnically engineered, then we have a nanoparticle that has been gain-of-functioned. And so it's not natural anymore. It's now, I like to say it's weaponized, because that's mainly what all of this is being used for, is a way of maximizing power. So that's I would say that the little clouds you're talking about, there's another thing that they refer to now and then, which is what we equate with chem bombs, where you send a little cloud and then you zap it, maybe with a laser or something, and it poofs out, and then it creates the nano technology that you want in the atmosphere for that particular area. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do this. I'm sure I knew when I saw the first chemical trails that they can't keep this up. I mean, you're talking about flying jets filled with this, and then it's a very complex and very expensive procedure. So they would have to eventually find something. But one thing I also know, with electromagnetics, you can't do electromagnetic operations in a vacuum. You've got to have particulate matter. And so we're stuck with it. And so to me, it's not a matter of trying to find a way out of it. It's a matter of how can we survive it so that our bodies are not trashed by this technology that we're having to breathe in. And that's sort of the way I'm going, even though I know that at some point their plan is to change us,
Right.
so that we're not as affected by these technologies that they consider important to full spectrum dominance over planet Earth. That's how I see it.
Okay, just real quickly, I wanted to say, what you were talking about with the flat bottom clouds and this coming from a laptop and the various techniques that can be used, a couple things come to mind. Like, people think of, does it need to have some chemicals and molecules? Well, it also, like, if you've ever looked at like laser beams or particle beam physics, like that definitely came to mind while we were thinking of it. Also, when I first started seeing the commercials for cloud storage and cloud computing, I'm like, no, they're literally doing it like in the clouds, right? They're actually storing some of it's data up there. It's not molecules anymore. And then the last thing is, I could do it right now. I could literally create some program on my computer and share my screen with you, so you saw what I was seeing. And when you're talking about someone doing it from a laptop, I'm literally thinking of somebody with like a graphic design program trying to make our sky look normal, and then basically screen sharing it with the false atmosphere that's been created based on all the particulate matter that's there, right? So those were the things that popped up. Also, I just started watching the series, so I can't speak intelligently about it, but there is a series called His Dark Materials that deals with layers of reality and this sort of dust, this particle dust, and what it has to do with sort of spirituality and one's daemon and all of this kind of interesting stuff. So I just started it, so I can't say anything more, but since you mentioned this dusty plasma, I thought you may be interested in this. The next question I have for you, and I want to just ask you it for like a yes or no thing, and then we can move on to the next thing. Do you consider the testing as part of the vaccination program? The tests, like I would say that because of the way that they're delivering something into the body, do you sort of classify that in the same sort of group when you're talking about how vaccination relates to all of this? Would you include the tests in that as well?
Yeah, that it's experimental. Absolutely. Because this is the final step. And it has, to me, it has two parts. The first part is the inoculation that people are undergoing now is a software that's being put into what's been prepared to be the hardware.
Okay.
And in that is the graphene oxide, which is the magnetic component, very highly conductive, and the hydrogel, and then the quantum dots for tracking. But the main thing with the hydrogel and the graphene oxide is that they are now creating scaffolding. Now, you'll remember, Emily, back in the, I say back in the Morgellons days, but Morgellons is still happening to people, so it's not past.
Right.
But when Clifford Carnicom was bringing it to people's attention back since the mid 90s, Morgellons was a fiber, a filament. And so what he did was he recognized that it had polymer parts to it. And then he was able to get inside of it through solutions primarily. And then inside there were organs that were very much genetically engineered. And so that was when he discovered what's known as the cross-domain bacteria. And the cross-domain is it's named that because it crosses all three domains of life on Earth. It's geoengineered to have parts of all that. So fungi, and for the animal realm, then you have the mineral realm, then you have the plant realm. So this use of Morgellons, when it would get in your body and it would unpack what it was carrying, then a scaffolding system began to be created, and it was completely self-replicating. Some people had it worse than others. We all were scratching our heads as to why. Some people had big lesions on their bodies, and it was coming out. Was coming out were color-coded, wiry-looking things. So it's like inductive reasoning times 100. You have to figure it all out. Once it's out, you don't have because it's national security, they're not going to tell you what's going on. You're going to have to find your own way. And so people were putting up with diagnoses at doctors of delusional parasitosis, that they were making up the feeling of the under the skin. They would feel something moving around.
Mhm.
And what it was these this scaffolding into going on, and the replication going on to meet the needs of the scaffolding. And the scaffolding are all about a network. This is what Elon Musk was referring to when he said a neural network.
Neural network, yeah.
This was it. So now we've moved on to the next phase of building the neural network with the graphene oxide and the hydrogel. So that's going on in people. The next thing that's going on in them is with every injection, whether it's a booster or a this or a that, doesn't matter, new diseases are being put into, and I say new, I don't exactly mean new, old diseases made new, made digital, old molecular made digital, being put into people to go dormant until they are called forth by 5G, 6G systems. And we're seeing the throws. I mean, the first and second vaccines are inoculations, as I understand them. They pretty much trash the immune system, whatever's left of it. I mean, after decades of junk food, fluoride, all the things, and I go into great detail in the book about that these were all purposeful, all intentional. This was not just profit motive. This was not just greedy guys. No, there was somebody in that pyramid of power who knew exactly what they were doing to our immune system. So once the immune system is out of the way, well then, there's nothing that's going to recognize these old ones made new, made digital. And these people are going to be used and used and used. So now we have a lot of symptoms, they're being called, on the side of the body, which Rudolf Steiner is very clear. The body is probably the most developed part of us, because the body of the human being has been around for millions of years in various phases of planetary development. So this body is, if you think about it, most people don't, it's incredibly sophisticated, incredibly wise and intelligent. This is not just a pound of flesh here. This is an extraordinary creation of God or the gods or forces, however you want to say it. This is not a slab of meat. And it certainly isn't what the CIA calls it, wetware. This is not wetware, hardware, software, wetware. But as they digitize everything, they want to change us into just in the case of the inoculated with the diseases, into a disease promoter, into someone who goes around and spreads the digital transmission that they're being forced to transmit now, because they're all transmitting since they got the software in them. And that's what we're calling, what is the word we're using for?
Shedding?
Yeah, that that's happening, but that's shedding is an animal word. It's what cows do and dogs. No, this is more than shedding. And they want to keep that silent. They don't want people to know that the electromagnetics of 5G, 6G is completely involved in this. And so they're still leading people to think, despite 2 years of the lockdown, during which you saw white trucks frantically and workmen frantically adding 5G components to 4G poles and things, they're leading people to think that, oh yeah, well, you don't really have 5G yet. I'm sorry, we have 6G too. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's just placed on top of, and then you deal with it at the supercomputer level. So that's what the inoculation is doing, is turning people into broadcasters, transmitters. And I really feel for them because it was a bad decision they made. No question in my mind. I don't care why they made it. But my concern is not the death rate necessarily, or the terrible things that some of these people are going to have to live with. It's that humanity itself is under attack. And these global elites, I've studied them for, I don't know, 40 years. I know them well. They had horrible childhoods. They were abused and tortured and forced to become something not human. And how do I define a human? All right, so I define a human as being someone who has these virtues in them. They have these, this soul cast in which they have deep feelings. They have compassion. They have forgiveness. They have great joy in being a creature of beautiful planet Earth, of being a divine being living in a body on a seemingly sometimes malign, cunning planet filled with people like that. I mean, to be human is not something that has to do with having a head and a torso and arms and legs. That's just the form. And you're lucky if you can get into one of those bodies, then you are human to some degree, because you can't get into one of those bodies unless you have that, at least from birth. Then we have the problem of people sacrificing their humanity for the sake of money, for the sake of power, for the sake of violence against children and women and old people or whatever. We have a lot of moral challenges here on the earth to live in bodies like we do. We are spiritual beings living in bodies, just like Madonna sang years ago, the material world. So when these things happen, we now have a choice. And this is how we go about building our free will, is these choices. We're not born with free will. We have to develop it. And that is, of course, why we are admired, says Rudolf Steiner, by the gods and the angels and the archangels and the archai, all those that can only do the will of God, can only follow divine will. We are the one spiritual creature who's trying to live in a body, trying to do the right thing because we love it, not because we're scared to not do the right thing. We love it. We want to do the right thing. We want to be human. And that's the key to this latest assault on us, is we now have a tremendous opportunity to really choose to be human. And that I can't tell people how heavily that will count in spiritual dimensions. That's what they want to see, not somebody passive who's going to church and praying that so-and-so will save them from whatever, or it's not about that. This is about really reaching in and taking hold of the beautiful human being and not allowing these whatever they are, as these global elites that have sacrificed their humanity or had it stolen from them at birth, that they want to overcome our humanity and do that to the gods and take control of this planet for themselves. That's how I see it. And that so fits with the secret space program and the Nazis that we brought over to work in it. I mean, that's exactly their MO. That's exactly what they wanted. And so that to me is worth fighting for. And boy, I am fighting. I am definitely fighting. I'm not one of those new agey types who says, oh, it'll all turn out just fine. It'll be all right. No, I don't believe that. I think you have to fight for the good, the true, and the beautiful.
So speaking of, being in a body and being human and Madonna, have you seen what her body looks like lately?
Well, we know what happened to her. She was taken.
I mean, like the last pictures I've seen of her, like this is some of this weirdness that is coming. It doesn't even look like a human in a body. And what I'm saying is, I'm not talking about plastic surgery. I think when you're looking at her now, there's a hologram being projected that is digital in nature, that is constantly being like Zoom touched up, like, when you can adjust, like constantly being shifted around, given a filter, do, whatever kind of thing. And it's bizarre to look at. It's like some very strange combination of like Kim Kardashian, and I mean, there's no Madonna there. Whatever you thought of her, there was a time when whether you loved her or you hated her, you knew exactly what was going on there. And now it's like, huh? And she was one of the people acting the strangest at the very beginning of the lockdown in terms of her social media posts and all of that kind of stuff. So I think the transformation we've seen, it started obviously before the lockdown, but even during the lockdown of her is kind of the roadmap for sort of the idea here, right? So I wanted to say, since you just brought up, like you talked about the secret space program and the Nazis and these people having, horrible childhoods that lead them into this space where they're, doing this stuff and thinking it's wonderful or helpful, or maybe they don't give a shit and they know it's awful, but they're doing it, right? I want to talk to you about one person in particular. And because I think she's the person who really, in the corporate sense, very much bridges the gap or the connection between the secret space program and then the synthetic biology on the inside. And that person, do you know who, like, I'm just going to show you. I'm sure you probably know who this person is, but I don't know how closely you've looked at her. Are you're obviously familiar with Regina Dugan? Are you familiar with her?
Is she at DARPA?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, okay. So the interesting thing about Regina Dugan, and this is like Michael Wan and I, we do a weekly show, and we fell onto her when we were like digging into something else. So she was the head of DARPA. She is now the head of this group called Welcome Leap. Okay. And I'm going to
with two L's.
Yes. And I'm going to tell you about Welcome Leap in just a second. Okay. But one of the things that's always stood out, even though I think he's mistaken about a lot of what he thinks his memories are. I don't know if you remember Andrew Bashaga, right? He's the guy who thinks he's been to Mars and all of that kind of stuff.
Oh, right.
I've had very lengthy conversations with him because he grew up in the same neighborhood I did, went to the same school, and shares some similar memories as me from childhood, even though he's older. He thinks he's been to space, and I think I was in a mind control program that tried to convince me that maybe I had been somewhere else like space, right? So we have like a different perception of it. But if you go and listen to all of his testimonies, he is insistent that Regina Dugan was in whatever program he was in as a child. And this program was both going to space, like there was space travel and also time travel, right? Okay, so she's been the head of DARPA, and now she's head of this Welcome Leap kind of thing. And Welcome Leap is working on a project they call Project Delta Tissue. Are you familiar with this? Okay. No. So they've changed the website a little bit since Michael and I just went back and grabbed this today because I wanted to talk to you about it. They've changed it a little bit since Michael and I first found it, right? But this is basically, they have several programs. They're all interesting. I looked at all of them, but at the time that we originally looked, there was just one. It was this Project Delta Tissue, right? And this is an integrated platform for predicting changes in tissue state, right? And it's got some interesting people involved with it. And if you read the description of the program, it's obviously talking about what you and I have been talking about here in terms of using the mRNA and all of this stuff to do things. But they've changed the description of the program a little bit. I was able to find an article in the Washington Post written by Regina Dugan, right? That seems to have some of the things that were originally listed in the project when Michael and I first found it. And she is comparing Project Delta Tissue to the Sputnik moment. So basically she's saying we need to do the same thing with exploring tissue and tissue states that we did with exploring space and how space could be weaponized, basically, right? And she goes into talking about how the coronavirus presents the same opportunities that certain things were presented in the when the Soviets launched Sputnik, which is interesting because the Soviet vaccine is also Sputnik, right? So that she compares this as kind of interesting.
Right.
But she's talking about a program that monitors the changes in people's tissue states, right? And of course, like the Delta variant appeared at the time when people started getting inoculated, right? And so I think what this entire thing has to do with, like, she compares this period of time to the space age, right? Like, one of the things I've always talked about with the secret space program is that, if you really dig deep into it, in my opinion, it is a one-to-one match with what they call the brain mapping program, right? This idea that space is out there, I think, is largely wrong, right? That what they say they're doing when they're exploring space is really exploring the deep recesses of the human mind, right? And it's sort of an analogy kind of thing, right? And so now she's like, okay, we're done with the space exploration and the mind control. I mean, we're not done, we're still using it, but we finished that part of the project. And now it's this, basically the like programming of the tissue, or the monitoring the change in tissue state to see sort of like where people are at. And if you look at the other projects they have at Welcome Leap, a lot of it has to do with monitoring for depression. They have a program called multi-channel psych. They have a program called something. They have a few things that are just having to do with RNA, things that are having to do with the first 1,000 days of a child's life, all of this really weird stuff, right? And I can never forget that Andrew says that Regina Dugan was there with him in this project, right? And so like this monitoring of the tissue state and the things that she has like going on, the kind of testing they're doing and the way that they're doing it, sounds to me like it lines up with exactly where you are going with your how the secret space program relates to synthetic biology and transhumanism. And so I just wanted to pull it up and ask if you've looked into this person or if you were aware of this project at all, and like how this kind of correlates maybe with where you want to take us now in talking about the synthetic biology aspect of this. And what you've kind of brought to the table new in this book, right?
Well, and I think you're just right on the money here, Emily, because for one, let's deal with her childhood first of all. Most of these people who are now being trotted out, they look like clones to me. They were found back in the, I don't know, from the 70s. They were born in the 70s and came of age in the 90s. And now they're being trotted out to run this, that, and the other. If they were under MK Ultra, the next generation of MK Ultra, which I'm imagining she was prepped to be one of these shining stars, and with a whole phalanx of PhDs and scientists and doctors and everything behind her. And she's working on, or she's spearheading as a personality. She's just a personality. She's not thinking up any of this or running any, it's all programming. It's all programming. Yep. They would not allow someone to be in the public like that who actually had their hands on the button or their hands on the actual formulae and things. So this is all about transhumanism, and the tissues thing. They want to, it's the same as the article I recently saw today. I'm just looking at a headline here I grabbed yesterday from the MIT Technology Review, how Silicon Valley hatched a plan to turn blood into human eggs. I mean, they're all over the place, but the thing I'm thinking of is this idea of sequestering carbon across across Iowa now. They're going to start sucking carbon out of the life sphere of the planet, basically. And having made carbon the bad guy was surely one of Himmel's, or whatever the Nazi thought it up, of the big lie. That's the big lie. Carbon is very much needed for life. So now it's the enemy. And now they're going to sequester it and use it for energy. So to me, it's the same thing with the tissues. Is they want silicon. They want a silicon model of a human being for space travel, for a variety of things, but mainly that it's not at all connected to nature. not at all.
Yeah, I want to just read you this little part real quickly here, right?
Yeah.
So it says here, okay, the disease, so she's talking about how, diseases that are problems right now that they're focusing on to, fix with this thing. These diseases have something in common. They're ultimately caused by changes in the molecules and cells that define how a tissue functions and interacts with other tissues in our bodies. If we could understand the physiological state of a tissue, we could explain the status of a disease in each person and better predict how that disease would progress. So that's how they're selling it. But you and I both know that that status monitoring is really about what you're talking about, right?
Right.
How
Right.
far along a person is in the process. And then down here under the program goals, this is what the program goal is. And remember, Andrew Bashago said that part of the project was about time travel, right? We need a new platform, a tissue time machine that can profile tissue states and predict transitions between states. The platform would provide quantitative, multi-scale, multimodal information to build integrated models of key cell and tissue states and transitions, right? So to me, if you sort of, zoom out a little bit and really look at big picture what those words mean, as opposed to just talking strictly about tissue, although it describes that as well. This is exactly like they're playing it out there in plain sight, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so when I saw that tissue time machine, I'm like, this is fascinating, because if she had been part of a project with him as a kid where they recognize that the way that you achieve time travel is by creating changes in the tissue of the human body, right? And then now she's here to sell that to the public as like a good thing or the solution to all the problems. I mean, this is how they do it, right? And just to capitalize on that, where she was between DARPA and Welcome Leap was Facebook, which, the meta and all of this kind of stuff right now.
Yeah, it's like it's sort of a career climb of the cloned.
Yeah.
Is how I think of it. But okay, so let's keep in mind here. Yes, this is the direction they're going in, and now they're achieving one of those rungs through this inoculation program on a very large scale, and culling at the same time. But people who think that this is about just culling or depopulation, that they're missing it, the point.
Mhm.
That's a secondary thing. They don't mind losing a few millions. That's no problem. But they want lots and lots of guinea pigs, and so that's what that's all about. But think of what, while we're having to deal with this crisis, this assault on humanity itself, on the human genome, think of the problem of what we're ignoring. I mean, basically, what we're ignoring are all the things that make, as I was trying to allude to, the things that make us human. To actually dwell in those things, in beauty and sensitivity and humility, and all the virtues.
Yeah.
We're in a fight stance now, and we're getting sort of hard-edged, and we don't have doesn't appear that we have the option to kind of sit back and like me. I mean, I'm a good example, I guess. When I was younger, there was no question that I would be a teacher and a writer. I knew that from the time I was a little girl, 5. But I thought I would be like a great writer, like D.H. Lawrence, or I wanted to be one of the greats, writing great fiction of fantastic human stories, and then instead I end up having to write about technology, because the ignorance on the technology that's taking us by storm is so dramatic that I'm very clear that, it's like, I'm in touch with the spiritual world very easily because of various inner experiences I've had. And so I get it. Okay, Elana, do that instead. Well, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And I'll try to make it beautiful, and I'll try to make it functional, and I'll try to make it true. But I think I missed the destiny I really had,
Mhm.
and have had to take on another one. And I don't mind, because it is in service to humanity, and I'm planning on having lots of lifetimes ahead of me. But it's still kind of disconcerting, the degree to which we're willing to buy their view of what being human is.
Yeah.
And that's what we really have to be very cautious of, because I notice a lot of people are they're either in terror and fear, or they're angry, they're all sorts of things. But we're all concentrating on the computer. We're all concentrating on learning about the technology, because we have to. We have to. And meanwhile, we have this other part of life that we can still carve out and protect if we so choose. Now, a lot of people are going back to the land. A lot of people are growing their own food. A lot of people are taking up the simpler life, away from the cities, the smart cities and computers and things. But and I am grateful to them for that. I'm very grateful. I would not try to make them like me for anything where I spend thousands and thousands of hours on a computer. But also at the same time, there's a certain quality to our children who are coming in, where it seems something's already been done to them. I would say it's probably vaccines, would be my first thought. My second thought would be maybe before they ever got here, something is happening to them. Is it possible that this tissue quest has something to do with changing the very model of the human being on some level I'm not aware of. So I have to consider the possibilities of that. I mean, I right now I'm in touch with an MK Ultra whose life, a male MK Ultra,
Mhm.
whose life from the time of his birth has been completely controlled by the U.S. government, and so in his case, something very interesting is happening, where he is put into a deep sleep, and it appears to be his astral body is taken out of his body, because at sleep the astral body lifts off.
Mhm.
And fortunate for us, this happens, which is why sleep deprivation is so important to torture.
Mhm.
Because unless you can get that astral body to lift off for a while, give you some respite, give you some rest, it's a very intense, astral body relationship with the physical body. And so they take his astral body and they make sex shows out of it,
Wow.
and sell it to people who show up for big prices to watch this astral show going on monitors, and pay really big money for it. So okay, let's think about that a moment. To get that astral body, to control that astral body and pull it out of the body, and does that have anything to do with the tissues and being able to control to perchance replace the tissues, because the tissues are suffused with the etheric body. That's another
Mhm.
subtle body we have. And the etheric body stays in our physical body when our astral body leaves at night, so that it can rebuild our cells and rebuild any wear and tear on us. And the etheric body is very important, like for instance, in Waldorf education. You
Mhm.
use the etheric body to teach the children whose etheric forces are very fresh and
Mhm.
very vital. Uh, this is part of the immune system as well. So by destroying the immune system with these inoculations, and with the hydrogel and graphene oxide going in through the inoculations, which has to do with tissues, replacing human tissue with synthetic tissue, with silicon, with a digital model, with a cyborg model. All of this is connected, and the only thing we need to get over really is our, well, some people need to get over their absolute disbelief that it could have gone this far. And where was I? Yeah, well, that's what I wonder too. Where were you? Where were you? Because I've known about this stuff for a long time, and it's not really possible at this point. It's too late to put the genie back in the bottle. So we're going to have to think of some other ways.
All right, I didn't expect to say this or to talk about this because I didn't know you were going to say what you just said, right? But I think it would be remiss of me not to take this opportunity to tell you this. So a couple of years back, I read some of a book by a person who you edited the book, okay? And this person, I read only a little bit of it because it was a little too close to home for me for the moment that I was reading it in. And this person was describing being taken out of her home to a nearby home where there was like porn films or something like that being filmed, and so like was sort of afraid to go to sleep because that might happen. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about. All right. So when I read that, I was like, okay, like this is during the later years of my drug use, I went through this phase where I was terrified, not every night of the week, only on a weekend night, Friday or Saturday night. I was terrified to fall asleep because sometimes you'd be up for a couple of days on drugs and then you're starting to sort of get tired. I would be terrified to fall asleep. I'd be fighting falling asleep because for some reason, and this was long before I ever read this book, because this was several years back, I had this idea in my head that I knew that there was a house around the corner where porn stars live because I lived in Chatsworth, right? And Chatsworth is like the porn capital of the world. And for some reason in my mind, I thought that if I fell asleep, I was going to be taken over there and filmed in porn. I don't know where this idea came from. And then several years later, I read it in the book, this other person had the same thing. So this is what would happen. Okay. I'd be like trying to stay up till I felt like if I made it till 4 or 5 in the morning, then it was safe or something like that. Right. So I'd be doing stuff on the computer, watching a movie or whatever. And I would like fall asleep, but drift off, and I would wake up, I would snap myself out of it. My skin would be so hot. It would feel like it was almost like a blood boiling. And I had so much energy. It was like I could have scaled Mount Everest or something like that, right? Like I would catch myself before I went into sort of deep sleep. What you're talking about with this guy, so like you understand the kind of experience I'm talking about. The fact that I could feel that in my skin. Now, this was a period of time when I was definitely suffering with a lot of the Morgellons and the target individual kind of symptoms. And a lot of that does have to do with body temperature and what your skin feels like. And at that time, I was having all the kinds of sores, and a lot of the stuff that was coming out of my skin looked like gel. It did not look like blood, right? Mm-hmm. So, as I got myself clean from drugs and figured out the diet for myself to sort of control what was going on in my body, because you don't ever completely get rid of it, but there's an environment that they prefer and an environment that is less hospitable to that stuff. So I learned what that was, and then eventually I got to a place where I was much more in control of my life and I didn't have the same fear level. When I read this woman's book a few years after I'd gotten clean, I was like, that's exactly the thing that I thought was happening to me. And I didn't live far from where she was living, right? What you're talking about with this guy sounds like the next level of that, right? Because I think, I don't know if this was actually happening or if this was an astral or an etheric body kind of thing, but I knew that the house was around the corner from mine. What you're talking about seems like the next level, right? Where it's like a show that people come to, that the whole thing, they know it's astral and whatever. So yes, I think that's a thing. But your point about how does this relate to the tissue? I see our skin as being sort of like an interface, kind of like an interface technology in a very organic sense. It's how we sense what's going on in the atmosphere. When something is scary, our hairs stand up, we get goosebumps, all of this kind of stuff. But also, if they're trying to change what we are made up of, the skin is a really important part of that. If you're starting to turn this skin suit into a digital or a different kind of technology than it originally was made to be, And I was feeling that when I was having these thoughts and experiences in my head, it literally, got to the point where my insides felt so hot that my skin felt like it was going to come off, kind of thing. Right.
Mhm.
I think you're onto something there, that these tissue
Yeah.
states have something to do with pushing, because that's what it felt like. It felt like I was being ripped out of my body. I don't mean that they were coming to my house and moving me over there. I
No,
mean,
they don't have to do that anymore.
correct, that they were lifting me out of myself and putting me into either a clone body or just some sort of etheric astral kind of thing over there or whatever, right? But this tissue thing, I hadn't
Yeah.
thought of it exactly in the way that you're talking about now. I always
Right.
thought more like a soul rip, but what you're saying, it's almost like you can sort of modulate something going on in the sensors and the tissue and create this scenario where something starts to almost rise. I totally get it. Excellent.
Because everything is digital, being digitalized, and people, we don't really understand what that means yet, but it means our bodies as well. And what you're talking about regarding the skin, did you know that on our skin, what makes our skin feel silky smooth and sort of glossy is the biofilm
Mhm.
on our skin. And the biofilm is part of the digitalizing of our bodies. It's encasing us. We're already encased, which is why Tony Pantalaresco recommends the baths that have borax in them.
Yeah.
Because the boron in the borax will at least open up the pores, because at this point, with the biofilm on us, which is coming down from the sky,
Mhm.
our skin's not breathing, like you just said. It's cooking.
Yeah.
The cooking in going on in here. So yes, if you think of it, and then I want to put in another thought, Emily, for you to think of, since you and I are on the same page, thinking that this is important stuff to think about, is that yes, it's probably the astral body that's being taken out. Certainly, occultists were able to do that in the 19th century. So it's not impossible. That it's being done digitally or by computers, by supercomputers, by quantum computers. However, yeah, that would be new. But I'm also wondering if in this tissue thing, I think there's another body. I go by a Rudolf Steiner model because I'm trained in it, but I think there's a plasma body as well that we have. And the plasma body is kind of problematical in that it is partially material. It is partially a material body. So if they can control that, it's sort of like an invisible man inside of us that could be controlled. And the plasma body it may be what they're taking out to get it to have an erection, do the sexual act, go forever, whatever. And all these people become very, well, I want to say animal, but I don't want to say something bad about animals who do what they do because they're animals. But all these people who are the spectators of this so-called sport, they just go sexually wild. They just go sexually crazy. So there is something going on another level. And so would this person's astral body, is it that powerless? Is it that powerless? I say to myself, I don't think so. I don't think the astral body is that powerless. On the other hand, certainly Carlos Castaneda indicated that some of his journeys, he would end up in places where there were what he called inorganics, inorganic entities, and then he would be in trouble unless he had enough power. So maybe that's it, is the astral body is the power, is certainly the spiritual will of most Americans is negligible now. The TV has just sucked it right out of them, and the movies and the iPhones and all the electronics. So it could be that that would be enough to explain it. But I also maintain that it may be this other body that is taken out. and along with the astral, I don't know. But anyway, I'm holding out for this other body, which Daskalos, Stylianos Ateshlis, the great Cypriot Christian mystic who died in the late 90s of the 20th century, Daskalos would have called it the etheric double.
I was just going to say, this is making me think of like doppelganger, right?
Yeah.
So doppelganger, and you know, which has been coming up a lot in a variety of media lately. And you mentioned it to me in some of our email trail. The other thing I wanted to say is, you know, and this continues to this day, even though I'm like, you know, in a way different place than I used to be, I still have some of these dreams that I would consider to be synthetic or cloning center dreams. And it is part of, like, it's very, very challenging. Like I see myself there, like, and I have a thing that I want to do it's like when you find yourself in that space, it takes a while to come to and figure out what's happening. And it's a race between figuring it out fast enough to stop yourself from doing the thing you don't want to do. Right. Right. It's very, and I'm sure you've heard this from other people, you know, with that kind of thing. And yes, I think there very much exists this some sort of replicant or double or doppelganger or some other body out there that has some part of you that shares some sort of resonance or tissue or whatever, but isn't exactly you, that is operating on the level that you're sort of speaking of here. The other thing I'm thinking of when you're describing some of this is the fascial layer in the body and some of the things that are being found out about that. I did a fascinating show with Sophia about that recently. Oh yeah. Yeah. And how that all can connect to some of what we're talking about right here. I want to do this. Let's do this. Let's wrap up the public hour. I'd like to have you back soon because we're not going to be able to talk about everything we wanted to talk about. But this has been fascinating, and I'm sure you haven't talked about some of this stuff with anybody else. Let's move over into the patron segment, and I want to talk to you a little bit about what happened in Houston last week and show you something and sort of get your thoughts on what I want to show you. Yeah. I don't know if we were going to talk a little bit about Twin Peaks. And I still want to, but I want there to be a good amount of time for that. So if you would so oblige, I may actually even get your book and read some parts of it, and then very shortly hope to have you back and we can do some more on the book in the first segment and then Twin Peaks in the second next time. Does that work for you?
Yeah, that's good. And I want to tell you that there is an awesome picture of the double on the back of the book.
Okay, awesome. So tell people where they can find you, where they can find your work before we move over to the patron segment.
Okay, so for the books, for me, you can find what my lovely web mistress has made for me at elanafreeland.com. And, you know, as fast as she's working, they're equally as fast at taking things down. It's quite a challenge for her. So then for the books, my previous 2 geoengineering books can be gotten at Amazon, of course, or at Feral House. And this book can be gotten at Amazon. Your local bookstore can order it from distributors. And for a color copy, you need to contact, because it's several dollars more. I just didn't feel right about charging people a huge amount of money for the book in general. But the color copy can be gotten through the Rudolf Steiner bookstore.
Oh, wow, cool.
In Seattle, Washington. They're very kindly doing this service for me. Otherwise, I have my Sub Rosa America series, which is completely David Lynch land. Yep. And I wish I could find his address so I could send it to him. But that can be gotten through Amazon.
Okay, awesome. We're going to head over to the Patreon segment. You can join us there at patreon.com/offplanetmedia or emilymoyer.locals.com. We'll see you on the other side.